behalf of everyone connected with Dad, thanks very much for, in some cases, humongous amounts of effort to get here. So I think, so obviously, you know, for those who, you must all be aware that I'm Brian's son, and I suppose I'm trying to think, I mean, throughout all the time, or since Dad died, you know, all my sort of thoughts have been filled with things that he did, you know, that now, of course, seem significant. And one of them in particular was, when I was a teenager, I remember him saying one day, he said, "Nick, I think you're a bit like me, in that you think that youth is a spectator sport." And then he'd really put his finger on something which you know, which actually was incredibly accurate. Sort of, I would see my friends behaving like teenagers and think, why do you have to behave like a teenager? Why can't you just behave like a normal person? And Dad was, you know, I think he was the same. He was sort of, you know, would puzzle the world out. And I think in a way that seems significant because life, I think, for Dad was a bit of a spectator sport. It seems like it's but maybe one that he didn't know the rules to. But who of us do, you know? So I thought I'd talk about my relationship with Dad a little bit and how it changed through the years. First of all, to say that I've met loads of people who come from, you know, divorced families and people, there's loads of them, and I've never met anyone else in my situation, someone who had two completely, you know, amicable parents who got on fine, but you know, had never really been together. To me, that was obviously normal. Most people ask me how, you know, how does that work? Did that somehow, I don't know, traumatise me? Is it weird? Of course, it's not weird. No one's background is weird. Other people's backgrounds are weird. Yours is normal. So, and the thing is that. You know, I think I suspect, obviously now I've had kids, I suspect I know exactly what Dad would have thought, which is, you know, I didn't give birth to it, and I didn't, you know, I'm not the main breadwinner. What am I doing here? What's the point of me? All dads obviously think that, don't they? So they think, what am I adding to this? And I know there's a vague sense of responsibility, and I think there was an interesting moment that I remember quite clearly from sort of, and I think that from anecdotal evidence suggests that Dad had the same attitude towards me. And I remember a moment when I was, I must have been about 4, where Dad, we had a sort of puzzle book that I was doing. Most of it was joining the dots and things. And I remember there was one question which is like a little crossword. And I think Dad, you know, was asking me the questions, and he said, you know, a short word for a boat that goes underwater. And I remember, weirdly, I remember very clearly thinking, well, I know that's a submarine, so a short word for it, I'll just guess, sub. And Dad, he kind of was looking down, and he looked up, and he was like, yes. Yes, it is sub. and I think, actually, that was like a moment of awakening for our relationship. And I think that's certainly when I began to exist for Dad. And then looking forward, you know, a few years later, when Dad began to exist for me, really, you know, when he became this, instead of just, you know, when you're young, your parents are just sort of these authority figures, and then when they become people, I remember, you know, when I was very young, the routine for me was always, you know, if Dad had me for a day, we might go to the Science Museum or the Natural History Museum. You know, we would go and do an activity and so on. But it was really when I got a bit older, I think, when I got, you know, when I could talk and make jokes, and I could find his jokes funny. That's when we really started to sort of appreciate each other properly. And I think, you know, if I just describe the daily routine, it was the same. For someone who was so creative, Dad absolutely loved routine. He was obsessed with routine. He loved traditions. He was always talking about instant traditions. You know, if we did something once and it seemed to work, he likes a tradition now, and we'd have to do it every day. And if he was looking after me on one of my days off, you know, when I was sort of, you know, sort of late single figures, early double figures of age, every day he would, you know, we'd play Monopoly in the morning. We invented lots of Monopoly traditions. We always played the rule where you had, you know, on the free parking, you put all the fines in the free parking, you know what I mean? But for some reason, when we were about to hit that square, we decided to roll the dice one by one because it's more exciting. You roll the first one, you're like, oh, can I make it now? I need 3. And we called that, I don't know why, the 1 by 1 Jubblies. And so when we played, it's like, Dad, you're in line for the 1 by 1 Jubblies. And then we'd go to Wimpy for lunch, and then we'd go back via the video shop. There's no blockbusters. We would find the crappiest looking films you can imagine. Things, you know, the just obscure sort of horror films and strange sci-fi films, always very low budget. Go back and watch it. And then in the evening, you know, when it's started late afternoon, we'd go to Jack's Wines, known to some of you. Jack, the 2 Jacks are still there. And I would have a drink, crisps and some sweets, and Dad, of course, would get some tiddies, and we'd go back. And then inevitably, Mum would come home, and we'd both be told off for some reason. In Dad's case, some task that hadn't been done, and in my case, it would be, you know, maybe homework that hadn't been done. There was the telling off, and then Mum would make me some sort of healthy food to eat. So when I got a bit older, that's when you know, that's when I left university, actually came back to London, started working. Is when and I remember, you know, a moment when we both met up in the Cock Tavern on Fleet Street, quite soon after I'd started at the MOD, and we just it was the first time really we were having a one-to-one conversation where there wasn't some kind of other relationship involved. You know, when I was at university and he was, you know, my dad, or, you know, it was just like we'd met up. We'd chosen to meet up after work. It wasn't a big thing, and that was the beginning of our relationship, I think, as friends, which he did much better at being a friend. He knew what to do about friends. He didn't know what to do about being a dad. You know, he didn't know how to tell people off, or, you know, he had no idea about it, but he, you know, he could be someone's friend, and he was, and of course, whether it's genetics or whether it's simply, you know, some kind of accident, we just had, it turned out we had all these things in common. And looking between that period, I suppose, between me starting work and through to me having Tom, it was a kind of golden age of our relationship. And I tried to make a list. It wouldn't stop coming, so this could go on forever. But I made a list of the things that we had in common, like the things that you wouldn't expect most people to like. A lot of them are sort of quirky, weird things that we both discovered that we would like and happily sit down there and talk about. So obviously linguistics, Ricky's mentioned that already. Paradoxes, we would discuss those for ages, but also there was a particular favourite, the prisoner's dilemma, which is an issue in game theory. But if you've ever seen Golden Balls, where's Alex? Is Alex here? Yeah. Remember, Dad invented Golden Ball. We had this real fascination with discussing strategy of crap daytime game shows. And we had a very long, didn't we? We had a very long argument about Golden Balls, and a love of giving nicknames to people. British comedy, particularly from 1955 to 1995. Crosswords, obviously only cryptic ones. A belief that the 1950s was some kind of lost idyll. Quizzes of any sort. Scrabble. Going into ludicrous depths about humour theory, to the extent that the joke was completely dead, but you would have to sit there and work out why it was funny. You'd want to sit down and dissect it. Sort of quirks of reasoning we were interested in. The Fortean Times, I don't know if anyone reads that, sort of strange phenomena. Crap jokes, there's a particular crap joke which it goes way beyond the bounds for taste in terms of crapness. It's not bad taste, it's just you'd never make a joke this crap. We were talking about the butcher who lives near John, who's called Mr. Head.
Head, yeah.
Mr. Head, the butcher. For some reason, Dad decided to string out this absurd scenario so that he could deliver this pun. And he said, "Look, if there was a type of sausage called the Garcia, and if Mr. Head's first name was Alfredo, he could say, 'Bring me the Garcias of Alfredo Head.'" And it was just that simple, pointlessly convoluted. Viz magazine, the ludicrousness of politics. I mean, Dad was very opinionated. We all know that, but he wasn't political. He didn't. I don't think he would ever sign up to a sort of particular political party. If you had to characterise him, he would be parts of him were very conservative. He was very traditional in some ways, but also I think socially very progressive. I mean, he's basically his view was classical liberalism. He never wanted to bother anyone else, and he didn't like being bothered himself by annoying rules, and, you know, sort of having to go to work and having to be given, you know, that was sort of his attitude.
He was very green, wasn't he?
But it was interesting. I mean, when I got a bit older and sort of went to actually, I mean, when I was a kid, you know, Dad would always ask me these puzzles. He'd say things like the liar paradox. He'd say things. He'd give me these. You know, he'd say, you know, what if there's a barber who, you know, cut everyone's hair, who didn't cut their own hair? Would he cut his own hair? And I'd sit there and puzzle it all out, and we loved that kind of thing. And then I discovered when I went to university that there was a whole subject. It was an actual thing. Philosophy was basically that. My dad had sort of primed me to do philosophy, and I didn't know. I just couldn't. But what I considered to be just fun topics, he'd actually was a thing called philosophy. I couldn't believe it. I was just absolutely in heaven when I discovered that, and that was all Dad that stimulated that. You know, with his little quirks and interesting questions, and taking me to the science museum and just puzzling about things. There are other things which you know, there was. We both have this sort of love of old science fiction and well, science fiction in general, particularly sort of the H.G. Wells and the kind of weird things that could happen in normal life. We both like Doctor Who. We watched that, and we both like H.G. Wells. I want to ask Ed actually to read a passage from the end of the Time Machine. Which I think is, I don't know, I think, you know, I imagine Dad reading it, he loved the Time Machine, we used to dissect it and, you know, discuss how could it work, how would it work, what would it look like if someone left. Ed, fire away, thanks very much.
So this is the epilogue to the Time Machine, where the narrator is wondering what became of the time traveller when he left in his machine, never to be seen again. One cannot choose but wonder, will he ever return? It may be that he swept back into the past and fell among the blood-drinking, hairy savages of the age of unpolished stone, into the abysses of the Cretaceous Sea, or among the grotesque saurians, the huge reptile brutes of the Jurassic times. He may even now, if I may use the phrase, be wandering on some plesiosaurus-haunted Ulitic coral reef, or beside the lonely saline lakes of the Triassic Age. Or did he go forward into one of the nearer ages in which men are still men, but with the riddles of our own time answered and its wearisome problems solved, into the manhood of the race? For I, for my own part, cannot think that these latter days of weak experiment, fragmentary theory and mutual discord are indeed man's culminating time. I say, for my own part, he, I know, for the question had been discussed amongst us long before the Time Machine was made, thought but cheerlessly of the advancement of mankind, and saw in the growing pile of civilization only a foolish heaping that must inevitably fall back upon and destroy its makers in the end. If that is so, it remains for us to live as though it were not so. But to me the future is still black and blank, is a vast ignorance, lit at a few casual places by the memory of his story. And I have by me, for my comfort, 2 strange white flowers, shrivelled now and brown and flat and brittle, to witness that even when mind and strength had gone, gratitude and a mutual tenderness still lived on in the heart of man.
So other things that you know, Dad and I found in common, just to scribble down, we have the works of Steven Pinker, the utter hatred of clothes shopping, and I think who couldn't share that? But I mean, all of these things, when each individual one you might expect to share with someone you meet, but for all of these things, it wasn't uncanny, but I suppose it is uncanny if you don't realise the extent to which, even though Mum did a great job bringing me up, where is she? Where is she? Look, I'll be nice about her at her field. She did all the sort of legwork in the upbringing. And so, but the fact that I get to the age of sort of 20 and discover that I've got all this in common with Dad, without really, that much in the way of sort of the time of contact is, uncanny, or it can only be explained by some kind of genetic programming. So we were friends. So at that point we were friends, and which is right, the strange setup. As I said, he was good at that. Other people's dads, you know, by the time I'm in my late 20s, other people's dads are doing the things they're coming around and doing DIY, or you know, giving people financial advice, you know, taking them fishing, man-to-man chats, you know. Dads, basically, in my view, that's what mums are for. Mums do after anything practical. Dads are for going down the pub with, before I sort of go on, I think obviously Dad's number one. The thing that we both shared a love of was going to the pub after work and having a pint, and you know, at least back in the day, a fag on a, you know, when you could not, you didn't have to worry about what you're doing the next day. Fridays were perfect, and you could just talk for as long as you wanted to about things. Mike, where's Mike?
I'm behind.
Mike's behind me. I'll ask Mike to read, obviously I think Dad's favourite writer, George Orwell, just a piece by George Orwell about a pub.
My favourite pub.
Mike Johnson,
Come in, Mike.
Come out slightly.
I'll start again. My favourite public house, the Moon Under Water, is only 2 minutes from a bus stop, but it's on a side street, and drunks and rowdies never seem to find their way there, even on Saturday nights. Its clientele, though fairly large, consists mostly of regulars who occupy the same chairs every evening, and go there for conversation as much as for beer. If you're asked why you favour a particular public house, it would seem natural to put the beer first. But the thing that most appeals to me about the Moon Under Water is what people call its atmosphere. To begin with, its whole architecture and fittings are uncompromisingly Victorian. It has no glass-top tables or other modern miseries, and, on the other hand, no sham roof beams, inglenooks or plastic panels masquerading as oak.
Yes!
The grained woodwork, the ornamental mirrors behind the bar, the cast-iron fireplaces, the florid ceilings stained dark yellow by tobacco smoke, the stuffed bull's head over the mantelpiece, everything has the solid, comfortable ugliness of the 19th century. In the Moon Under Water, it's always quiet enough to talk. The house possesses neither a radio nor a piano, and even on Christmas Eve and other such occasions, the singing that happens is of a decorous kind. The barmaids know most of the customers by name and take a personal interest in everyone. They are all middle-aged women. 2 of them have their hair dyed in quite surprising shades. And they call everyone dear, irrespective of age or sex. Unlike most pubs, the Moon Under Water sells tobacco as well as cigarettes, and it also sells aspirins and snacks, and is obliging about letting you use the telephone. You cannot get dinner at the Moon Under Water, but there is always the snack counter, where you can get liver sausage sandwiches, mussels, a speciality of the house, cheese, pickles, and those large biscuits with caraway seeds in them, which only seem to exist in public houses. The Moon Under Water is my ideal of what a pub should be. But now is the time to reveal something which the discerning and disillusioned reader will probably have guessed already. There is no such place as the Moon Under Water.
So that was, and then I think I suppose I want to say something about the last few years, where Dad told me when I was he referred to this dream he'd had, and he said he used to have this dream about being at university, and it wasn't the dream that was odd, it was just what happened when he woke up. He would say, you know, so I had this dream about being at university, and then when I woke up, I'd realise that I wasn't at university anymore, and I'd think, God, no, I've left university, I'm in my 20s now, and then he'd think a bit later, no, I'm in my 30s, and then he'd realise a bit later that he was in his 40s, and that the university, the thing he just dreamt, was such a long time ago, and I think there's something about Dad which is sort of almost, there was something in his destiny to be left behind by things, that he would still be there when other people had moved on. And I think there's something there was something in his character about that. He wanted the party to continue, and other people, you know, were moving on and getting responsibilities and doing things, whatever it was he was doing. And then, you know, over the last few years, I think that, you know, when Dad sort of, you know, obviously came out of work and into having to direct himself, that's when his sort of crippling lack of self-motivation really became this big problem. And but you know, I obviously it's Dad's memorial, so I can't blame it on him. I'd like to blame it on Tony Blair. Because I had to pinpoint a moment, which was the beginning of sort of, you know, that Dad's, I think we all obviously know Dad's sort of decline physically and mentally a little bit the last few years. It would be the smoking ban. That was, you know, what I said about the fact that he wanted to live and let live, and this was an impingement on his little fortress. You know, it's the where he could just have his pub paper, you know, his beer and a cigarette. And I feel like there's something significant about that, something he referred to a lot. And then we all, you know, I won't cover what sort of happened next, but so now he's gone, and I think, you know, but the thing is, the weird thing, the odd thing is, I don't think, I haven't really missed him yet. I don't feel like I miss him, and I think, and it's because everything I do is there, and I don't feel like, I feel like I know what it's like. I can talk to him all the time, because so many things have been popping up in my head, you know, things that he's said and done. Everything I do, it relates to something I remember doing with him. And, you know, down to, I remember, you know, when Tom and Becky are jumping on my legs, you know, that when you must remember where you put your legs up in a sort of triangle. Dad was always doing that. He'd have a fag on with his legs in a triangle. I remember jumping on there. That reminds me of him. And things like every time I procrastinate, every time I say to the kids, I sit on the, you know, the things that used to annoy me about Dad when I was a kid. I was on the sofa and I'm quite relaxed. And Tom's like, "Come and see this brilliant thing I've done." And I say, "Can you bring it in here?" And that's Dad. I don't think I'm in denial. I don't think he's gone. I don't think he's gone because he's me, and I'm with him all the time. So anyway, that's how I feel about that.
Lovely.